wherever you are listening, however you may be listening. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Cardinals on SI podcast. For Richie Bradshaw, I am Donnie Druin joining you live from a very beautiful Monday in the middle of May. Richie, we are just roughly 2 months out from NFL training camp. Football season, it feels like it's rapidly approaching us, man. It feels like after a very long offseason, we had to truck through all of the rumors, the speculation, whatever you want to call it. But with actual football activities happening on the football field, it feels very good to be talking about what the 2025 season may or may not have in store. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, go to follow Richie on Twitter at RichieBrads36. Follow me on Twitter at Donnie Druin. How are you, my man?
I'm doing good. It's about that time where things are starting to heat up outside a little bit. I was over at my parents' house last night playing with my nephew outside. We got about 30 minutes in before his cheeks were rosy red and Uncle Richie was sweating out of his shirt, and I was like, "We're going in. I don't want to go in. You're going in too."
Yeah,
So
we're
it's about that
going in,
time of
pal.
year, but yeah, it's hopefully going to be that that snowball, and we're going to see the the timeline speed up a little bit for football season. I feel like this offseason hasn't dragged as much as others have, but I am curious what other Cardinal fans think.
No, I would agree. It doesn't feel like it dragged, but maybe because the Cardinals had themselves a very, very good offseason, both in free agency and the NFL draft. Shout out to Brian already coming in. Can't sweat his only clean shirt.
Already got a comment about that shirt, baby.
Good choice. So, like you already alluded to, the Cardinals had a pretty successful free agency period. Got names such as Josh Sweat, Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell, to name a few. The 2025 NFL draft quickly came and went. Walter Nolan, Will Johnson, Jordan Birch just named their top 3 picks. Spent a bunch of money for agency, 7 draft picks, 6 of them coming on the defensive side of the ball. Shout out to me.
Smitty! What's going on, brother?
Oh man, in 2025, that is crazy. That is actually crazy. the
You're always
Cardinals,
Smitty to me, brother.
yeah, the Cardinals had themselves quite the offseason, but I mean, no team can exactly turn their fortunes around all in one offseason. There's still going to be holes, there's still going to be question marks, and that's exactly what we're here to talk about today. So, 3 questions we have 40 years on the Cardinals moving into the 2025 training camp. The first one, and maybe even the biggest one, Richie, for me is, what's the offensive line going to look like? We know we have Paris Johnson at left tackle, Evan Brown at left guard, Yaldi Froholt at center. But Richie, the right side of the offensive line is still very open, very question marky, if that's the thing the cool kids say.
Question marky?
Question marky. We don't
Mm-hmm.
know what the right side of the line is going to look like, both at either right guard or right tackle. If they were to play a game right now, it seems as if Isaiah Adams would be the starting right guard and Kelvin Beachum would be at right tackle, just because Jonah Williams is still, recovering from his injury that he suffered at the end of the year. There was a report, I believe, by ESPN's Josh Weinfuss earlier this offseason that said that Williams would be expected to be healthy by the start of the season. What exactly that entails, I'm not sure how available or fit he's going to be by week 1 of the regular season. Who knows? Schedule drops on Wednesday, by the way, for people who are unaware. The full regular season schedule, and apparently Ian Rappaport, little sidebar on the Pat McAfee show today, came out and said he got a text from a source saying that the Cardinals' schedule release is a banger. So I'm very excited, very intrigued to see what that entails. But flipping this back, they don't necessarily have a starting right guard on the roster right now, given your beliefs on Isaiah Adams, whether or not he can do it or not. Right tackle, very much up in the air between Kelvin Beachum and Jonah Williams. Just what is this line going to look like?
We know what the left side is, right? Paris Johnson playing at a Pro Bowl level. Evan Brown, I really liked that re-signing. And then Yahya Froholt is going to hold down center. I still think he's more than quality. Then that right side, I was hypercritical this offseason that they needed to get an answer to right guard. And it's not that I necessarily don't believe in Isaiah Adams, but we don't know what he is, Donnie. He got 3 starts, I believe, last year. He appeared in a lot of games for the team, but we don't know for sure if he's fully ready and capable of being that full-time starter for the Cardinals as of right now. And that's concerning. And then the right tackle spot, I think you'll get away with it this year. I am really glad that Beecham is back because I just don't trust Jonah Williams at this point in time. And I don't think that you can place any trust in Jonah Williams at this point in time with the mass amount of injuries that he has sustained and the fact that he just can't get on the football field. And it's not his fault. Inherently, it's just, bad luck of the draw when it comes to injuries. But the right side of the line is a huge, huge flaw for the Cardinals right now. And I would tell you it's probably the biggest weakness on this team right now is the right side of the offensive line. And again, I like that Beecham is back and Isaiah Adams could be good. But as of right now, you're banking on a veteran who is closer to 40 than he is 30 and a guard who, coming out of Illinois, was already referred to as a project. And now you're going to be filling him into a full-time position. It's a gamble.
No, it is for sure. I think one name floating around in the free agent market right now, former starting right guard Will Hernandez, still a free agent. He hasn't signed anywhere. I would very much be a fan of them bringing him back so long as he is healthy. He did a pretty good interview with PHNX, I think at Radio Row of the Super Bowl earlier this year. And he was like, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be fully healthy. Like, there's really nothing that's going to stop me from playing next year. I think given the play that you had seen from Will Hernandez the last couple of years, you can make an argument he was probably one of the more consistent pieces of that Cardinals offensive line before he went down. And I wouldn't call it like a big blow, wouldn't call it like a major blow, but like when you lose a guy like Will Hernandez in the lineup, that certainly sucks. So I would be a big fan of bringing him back. I do think, well, let me ask you this. If they re-sign Will Hernandez, how much more confident are you in Arizona's offensive line compared to a guy like Isaiah Adams?
Well, Donnie, this podcast is just a fan of Will Hernandez. That's one of the guys that we've been a big fan
Miho
of. And
thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Whatever that was.
Miho things. That's his like slogan, I guess.
Oh, I guess I'm not as big a fan as I thought I was. Well, I didn't know that.
Interesting enough, my man. He was really well liked in the locker room to the point where there's still guys rocking his like Miho things, like shirts, apparel, whatever you want to call it, working out this offseason, even though he's not re-signed with the team yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I really like Will Hernandez. In the 3 years that he was with the Cardinals, I thought he was a plus starter for the team. And unfortunately, he did end the season twice in those 3 years on injured reserve. But the 2023 season where he played and started 17 games, I thought he was one of your more consistent players. And I think that should be a move that is made to bring him back because I do think that there is a lot of intrinsic value of having a starter for your team who has been a starter for your team for several years in a season where it's borderline win now because of the expectations that the team has raised. This is something me and you have talked about several times. Mm-hmm. With it being a win now kind of season, win now in quotes, you're kind of in a spot where you need to have guys that can start right away. If this wasn't a win now season, you're totally good with Isaiah Adams starting 17 games. And again, Adams could be great. He could be a Pro Bowler this year for all I know. But I want that proven commodity. And Hernandez is coming off the season-ending injury. I know what I have in Hernandez. That's all it is.
The injury history does scare me a little bit. And like you alluded to, 2 to 3 years he was in Arizona. He didn't end the season on injured reserve. I just think when you evaluate the level of the offensive line play with and without Will Hernandez, I don't want to call it night and day, but it's almost pretty close to me. And I think at the end of the day, if you can upgrade any spots, which Jonathan Gannon and Monty Austin for it through the entire offseason have said, hey, like we want to bring in competition at every position possible because competition brings out the best in everybody. And that's exactly what you're going to get. I do think at this point in time, not knowing where Will Hernandez is in his rehab, I do think he would be an upgrade at right guard. That's not Isaiah Adams slander. I think,
nope, not at all.
Maybe a couple more years, he could easily fill in at the right guard spot. Maybe he's the successor to Will Hernandez. Who knows? But I think at this point in time, bringing back Will Hernandez would be a very, very smart move. I can't imagine he would cost a lot. The Cardinals they're still top 8 in effective cap space moving into the summer, so they still have some spending power if need be. Dalton Risner was also another name I've seen kind of thrown around the interwebs. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I wouldn't hate that. Risner's a guy who has a lot of play time at this point in his career, and he's played at an average to above average level with Denver and Minnesota. I can't remember if there's another team in there, but he is a good football player, and I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. I think that that could be a really solid move, excuse me, for the Cardinals to make. So I could get on board with that. I could totally get on board with that.
Yeah, so I would like Will Hernandez back. The only I guess like hang up. Let's shout out to Robert,
Robert,
Austin,
what's going on,
Texas.
brother?
Great
Austin,
timing with the
Texas.
Austin, Texas. Great timing with that because offensive line coach Clayton Adams is now the OC for the Dallas Cowboys, and that was a very heavily rumored partnership for Adams to kind of bring over Will Hernandez to a Cowboys offensive line. I'm not sure how their draft may have impacted those plans at all. Maybe Hernandez might be waiting it out to see if either the Cowboys need an extra player on the offensive line, or maybe the Cardinals finally budge and maybe give him an extra couple million or two. Hernandez, it feels like he really wants to come back to the Cardinals just based off the interviews he did with PHNX earlier at Super Bowl Radio Row. But it seems like a good fit. And then moving on to right tackle, Jonah Williams in the 3 quarters he played for the Cardinals. Well, maybe, sorry, he played like one before going down. He seemed fine. That's not a big sample size at all, but like we've been very big on the way Kelvin Beachum stepped up last year, and he performed admirably well. Will
Yes.
we get that same performance again this year? Who knows? But I think when you talk about proven commodities, Beachum came back for a reason that I felt like he was on the verge of retirement, but came back. Still feels like there's some gas left in the tank for him. And if he plays anything like he did last year, the Cardinals should be fine at worst at right tackle.
Yep. I like Beecham, and I think that he's more than good enough to hold down a position for one more year. And I was very happy when the Cardinals announced that that was going to be one of the decisions, if for no other reason than he's your right tackle for this year. You don't really have another option to play around with because Jonah Williams, like we mentioned earlier, he's unreliable, and it's because of the injuries, not because he's a bad football player. But other than that, the Cardinals don't really have very many options to play with at offensive tackle whatsoever. And you're not moving Paris Johnson back to the right side when he was playing at a Pro Bowl level, and let alone the fact that you just need your blindside protector. So the right side of the line is a massive weakness right now. And the best thing that they could have done if they were gonna do the minimal amount of moves possible, then the best thing they could have done was re-sign Kelvin Beachum, and they did that. So I like it. I love it. I want some more of it.
Love Led Zeppelin. Shout out to Robert in the comments, man. I
I
can see the
don't think
Cardinals
that's
winning. I can see the Cardinals winning the NFC West. Robert, I agree, brother. They were 6-4, top of the NFC West after the bye week. They fumbled towards the second half of the season, ended up
a
missing the
few
playoffs,
times.
but it feels like they only got better through the offseason. I think if you were to poll a lot of the people who would win the title right now in the division, I think the Rams probably hold the number one spot, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. We'll see. But it feels pretty open. It feels like the Cardinals are very capable of making that push. And I think that's why there's so much excitement around the team moving into like this point of the offseason.
Hear me out. Hear me out. The Cardinals or the Seahawks, not the Cardinals, should be the favorites to finish last in the NFC West.
Okay. Lost Gino, lost DK. They didn't they get Cooper Cup?
They got Cooper Cup. They
Yeah.
got Sam Darnold. I just think that those are more, what's the word? Like not band-aids, but you're kicking the can down the road. I am a Darnold fan, don't get me wrong, but the rest of the roster, it's just I don't know if the Seahawks got better this offseason.
Well, Kevin O'Connell's not calling plays for the Seahawks, so I'm very intrigued to see what Darnold looks like outside of Minnesota.
I'm a Darnold man. I will back that man until the day I die because I just love the underdog story. The former number 3 overall pick underdog story, obviously.
Yeah. No, he worked his way through it. No, for sure. He hasn't had the cleanest NFL career. But moving on, sticking to the offseason, not the offseason, the offensive side of the ball. Question number 2 we have, Cardinals must answer. Will continuity really save the Cardinals offense? Richie, do you know by chance the definition of insanity?
The definition of insanity, Donnie, if I'm familiar, is being a U of A Wildcats fan, but it also might be doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
That second part is true. I think the first one might be open to interpretation. Um,
If you're smart, come on. Come on. Who's living in Tucson?
the Arizona Cardinals made
No, not the
no
Arizona
changes.
Cardinals.
They made no changes to their offense from 2024 to 2025. Same core, same weapons, same offensive coordinator. I'm so curious, man. I'm really intrigued to see what this offense is going to look like in 2025 because you watch how the offense sputtered towards the tail end of last year, and it felt like, ooh, Richie, not gonna like that.
Get him out.
Mm.
How are you from Austin, Texas?
Maybe
And
he
you
lives in
root
Austin,
for.
Texas.
Oh my God.
Anyways, people watched the Cardinals offense sputter last year, especially towards the second half of the season, and they said, okay, you know what? Like maybe there's no like massive changes coming. They're not going to fire Drew. They're not going to trade Kyler, but surely something's going to be different. Kyler, in one of his last press conferences, hit the podium and said, there's got to be some changes. Paraphrasing, of course, not verbatim, but there's got to be some changes. What changes have been made? Your offensive line arguably got worse.
Arguably.
Yeah. I mean, at this point in time, yeah. Oh, brother. Wildcats are in here today, my man.
I know who that person is, so we're gonna
Shout out to
fight.
Minnie.
Shout out to Minnie.
The dinosaur.
You think your TikTok
I
fans can come in
understand.
here like this?
I understand the hope and need for Marvin Harrison Jr. to hit the next level from year one to year two. I do think that's going to happen. I think Michael Wilson is a pretty solid wide receiver too. I was curious to see if they did anything at the slot receiver position, but they brought back Zay Jones and Greg Dortch. I really like the 1-2 punch of James Conner and Trey Benson in the backfield. I like Marco Carter as a RB3. I think that's really nice luxury to have.
Don't forget about DeMercado.
Kyler, we've seen the ceiling he has as a potential top 8, top 10 quarterback. He just needs to be more consistent in terms of his play. I don't know. I guess I was just hoping the team at some point this offseason would be, you know what? We need something different. We need a speed guy in the receiver room who can take top off the defense and stretch the field out and go make big plays. Cardinals don't have that.
I feel like there was someone on this website who obnoxiously said that.
Probably me. Probably to both of us.
Probably the both of us. There was no significant changes made. Were there any changes made?
No. And
None.
Monty Ossenfort talked after day 3 of the draft and said, really confident in the offense. I do think it's going to take a step forward in 2025. They're banking on the power of friendship. They're banking on continuity. And the third year of Drew Petzing's offense, second year where Kyler is fully healthy. I will say that.
Too many years.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not shitting on this offense. I am not downplaying how good it can be because when all cylinders are firing, Richie, it's scary. When James Conner gets going downhill and they're able to work off that play action and Kyler's able to be that kind of like game manager with like a really, really high upside, really tough to stop. But the problem is that towards the second half of the year, defenses were able to make the Cardinals into a one-dimensional offense. And then Arizona just couldn't figure it out. Now, whether that's a Kyler problem, whether that's a Drew Petzing problem, I have no clue. I'm not in a meeting room. I'm just a dude with a backwards hat in front of a microphone. Right.
What a coincidence. I am also a dude with a backwards hat in front of a microphone.
In theory, I understand the one to get more reps, more understanding, more familiarity, and like that should bode better results. I just don't know how much better that will be, and I don't know if that will be significant enough to get the Cardinals over the hump, offensively speaking.
No, it's not nearly enough, Donnie. And you already made the mistake of bringing back Drew Petzing, and I feel like that should have been one of the easiest. Like, hey, I'm sorry, we got to move on. Like, I don't know what the logic is. Like, I understand he was getting head coaching interviews, but at the same time, like, is it still worth holding on to? I don't
So
know
I will
because
say
it was falling apart in the second half of the year. Go ahead.
it was. Sorry to interrupt you. I don't think Drew should have been fired this offseason. I don't. I think he set himself up to potentially be fired after this upcoming season, but I think that would have been just a little premature, pulling the gun on him after 2 years. And one of those years, Kyler wasn't even healthy until the second half of the year.
What kind of pictures does Drew Petzing have of you, Donnie Druin?
Yeah, yeah.
Was it embarrassing photos of you at the Christmas party? Because that's kind of where I'm leaning right now.
Listen, there's a couple people that have some pictures of me that should not see the light of day. Drew Petzing's not one of them.
I've got a lot of fun videos from a certain best friend's bachelor party in Las Vegas. That's for sure.
Listen, anyways, anyways,
Anyway, Donnie,
anyway.
they didn't do enough. They did not do enough. And you know what? Whether you want to be on the side of bring back Petzing and give him another chance, like the Boy Scout over here is thinking, or if you're with me, the right side, and are saying, hey, we were contending for the playoffs. Your offense completely fell apart. We're moving on because we have raised that minimum expectation from growing a little bit to, hey, we should probably be going to the playoffs right now. Why are you sticking with a guy who clearly just showed you that when the second half of the season rolls around, he rolls flat on his back? And don't get me wrong, there's other people, number one, who deserve plenty of criticism for the way that the offense sputtered at the end of the year. But Petzing was a massive problem, and there was no reason to bring him back. Now, to move on from Petzing, Donnie, there was nothing they did. The only move that I can kind of get on board with, and this is very recently, by the way, that I put a little more thought into it, is re-signing Zay Jones. And the reason why is because Zay is the slot receiver. And a healthy Zay Jones, I dare say, at least in his prime, was a top 5 slot receiver in the league. Like, if there's one thing that he knows what to do, it's playing inside at the slot, it's making the short to intermediate catches, it's converting first downs. That is what he does best. Hey, look at his time with Jacksonville. Like, when they were setting up Trevor Lawrence for success, when Trevor Lawrence went to the Pro Bowl, Zay Jones had like 80 catches. And I don't even know if he was over 10 yards a catch. But you know what? He did his job and he did it well. So we didn't get that from him last year because he was suspended, but then he also was injured a little bit of the year. So we really did not get to see the impact of Zay Jones. So to kick the tires on him again, I don't hate that. At the time, I was like, what are we doing? And
Yeah,
I thought about it a little more. I don't hate it. I think that there are potential benefits here. I will tell you, it is a low risk, medium reward kind of situation that you're in here with Zay Jones.
So I think the problem people had with the Zay Jones signing was the suspension, the injury, and whenever we did see him in action, wasn't all that great. Now, could that be
Right.
for
And he was also off the field for a long time.
Yep. Could that be for a variety of reasons / factors? Yeah, absolutely. But if you're bringing him here to be a slot guy,
right?
Like it or love it, the Cardinals really like Greg Dortch. They brought him back. He's going to be the starting slot receiver. They really like him in the slot. And I know you're kind of banging the table for Zay Jones to be the starting slot guy. I just don't think that's going to happen. And I think
won't
Greg
get that
Dortch,
far.
I think Greg Dortch is the starting guy. They really like what he can do across special teams, all that good stuff. But bringing us back full circle, if Zay Jones being re-signed is like the top offensive move of the offseason, what are we doing? And to even bring this back more so, and granted, like if there's got to be sacrifices, like if you are going to go defensive heavy and get Josh Sweat, Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson in free agency, love upgrading the defense, but it comes at a cost. It comes at a price. And what is that price? Not maybe upgrading the offense like you would, or maybe like you should. Tying back to Drew Petzing, Richie, the reason why I don't think he got fired is because how much blame can you put on Drew Petzing compared to Kyler Murray? What is that balance of, is this Drew's fault? Is this Kyler's fault? Now, I'm not going to say Drew Petzing is the smartest dude to ever coach on a football field. What I will say, though, is that a lot of the close games that the Cardinals lost in the second half of the season, Kyler Murray turned the ball over at very inopportune times. I don't
Yep.
think that's a Drew
And like I
Petzing
said,
problem.
I said you need to assign blame to number one. You do. So hopefully Quez Watkinson show. First of all, I don't know if we call you double O's corner, but corner, good to see you back in here. Quez Watkins, I don't hate it. It's just what has he done to really stand out as like, oh dude, we signed Quez Watkins? The majority of Cardinal fans go, I don't know who that is. So that's just my stance on it. But Kyler has got to get this right, man. This is a true do or die season. And it feels like he's been in do or die seasons for the last like 3 years. But this has to be the one. This is it, especially with a quarterback class next year that, even if it doesn't include Arch Manning, has the potential of Lenore Sellers, has Drew Aller and Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik. I added in Lenore Sellers. You might have Sam Levitt. There's a ton of guys in next year's quarterback class. The point to where super early, a lot can change. You have enough guys to potentially tie the record for quarterbacks in the first round. I'm not sure what that is. It's probably 5 or 6, somewhere in there. The Cardinals could be one of the teams to be looking at a quarterback in next year's class. And if Kyler Murray does not take that step forward, that possibility skyrockets. So he's got to figure it out, because the Cardinals raised their minimum expectation to being a playoff team. And now next year, you got a stacked quarterback class. The timeline of this is awesome for Cardinal fans. This is not an awesome timeline for Kyler Murray, who has struggled. Let's just call it what it is. He has struggled.
I would agree. And the thing with Kyler is we've seen what he can be. We've seen exactly what kind of quarterback and how high of a level he can play at. It's just getting that level consistently.
Right.
You know, Mahomes has bad games. Josh Allen has bad games, but they're not consistently up and down like Kyler Murray is. I don't think Kyler was done any favors this offseason running it back with the same crew. I know he's been very vocal about all of the guys on the team. He has weapons. He has a very good running game. And for as much as we talk about Drew Petzing, I think his running schematics, top notch.
Yeah.
Top notch. Trey
We can
McBride, one
give
of the
him
best tight
flowers
ends
for that. Absolutely.
No, for sure. McBride's one of the best tight ends in the league. James Conner's a
Top 3.
very, very underrated running back.
Top 10.
Marvin Michael Wilson should be very, very good receivers next year. Like the tools
Top
are there.
12 duo. Top 12 duo. The tools are there, but I question the quarterback and I question the scheme.
There's still something missing. And I was hoping they would get that something missing piece this offseason, and they didn't. They opted to go defense. Will that pay off? Who knows? Is the defense going to be night and day better? Absolutely. But if your offense didn't change much at all, and your offense was a big part of the problem why you missed the postseason last year, I don't know what to tell you.
I don't either.
So big year for Drew Petzing, big year for Kyler Murray. Before we move on to the defensive side of the ball for a final question that the Cardinals must have to answer, we're going to find out. Is it Drew? Is it K1? 2025 is the year we get a lot of answers to these questions of who exactly needs to go, who needs to step up, who can't step up, and who will step up. We're going to learn a lot over the minimum 17-game season Cardinals are about to play.
Can I steer the pot for a sec?
Yes, sir.
This would kill me as a Sun Devil fan, for sure. But hear me out. Can Petzing move on from Kyler, draft Levitt, and pay the big bucks to the Sun Devils offensive coordinator, Marcus Arroyo?
That's
Call me
such a
biased.
leap. That's
Call me
such a leap,
biased.
man. That would take a lot. You're putting your eggs all in the Sun Devils basket, man. Not a bad basket.
You sound pretty negative right now.
No, a negative Nelly.
You know what?
I've
We'll
been
help
called.
it out, and we'll get Jordan Tyson too. There you go.
Okay.
Now he's got a real number one receiver.
Moving on to our third and final question. We talked so much this podcast, Richie, about the Cardinals improving the defensive side of the ball, and it felt like maybe some position groups that were maybe once considered a weakness have now been transformed to a strength, most notably the defensive line, and I'm including edge in that grouping, and cornerback. Both of those position groups
Nidius, what's going
moving
on?
into training camp. Both of those moving into training camp seem to be very, very deep, and there's going to be a lot of competition. Thanks for checking us out, my man. Lot of competition, a lot of mouths that need to get fed that aren't necessarily going to get fed. We'll see how the order shakes out into training camp, but you can only have 11 players on the field at one time. You've got considerably deep rooms, defensive line, corner. We know they rotate their front seven a lot. It's not a matter of will these guys
They're going
play.
to do it even more this year.
Yep. I'm just curious to see with so much talent in the room. One, who do you keep? Who stays? Who goes? And how do you divvy up the talent? How do you decide? Okay, Jordan Burch, is he going to be an outside linebacker? Is he going to be a guy with his hand in the dirt? Can he even move inside a little bit? Walter Nolan, 3 tech, 1 tech, 5 tech. What is he? Darius Robinson, did we see enough from him in year 1 to maybe keep moving him around in year 2? Justin Jones, Blau Nichols are back from injury. And then you also have Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell, Dante Stills, who I feel like gets so lost in the hubbub.
This podcast is a fan of him. At least this man is.
No, big
I know
fan
who
of
Dante Stills is.
What he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of cool pieces, a lot of toys for Nick Roush to play with. And then you look at a cornerback room, and that was a position group to where not many people had anticipated the Cardinals to address at all in free agency or the draft. They ended up taking 2. Will Johnson, who, I mean, you kind of had to, right? It fell in their laps at number 47. You're not going to pass him up. And then Denzel Burke, a 5th-round pick who maybe still has a little bit of gas in the tank.
Call me intrigued.
Right. So, I mean, the Sean Murphy Bunting still manned one of the outside roles. Garrett Williams, obviously, is one of the best nickel corners in the game. He'll get paid like it next offseason, hopefully. Max Melton, Starling Thomas, Will Johnson. Those are all 3 guys who can play on the outside. And Starling Thomas took a step up last year. Max Melton seemed to kind of figure it out a little bit towards the tail end of his rookie season. And this isn't like a bad problem. This is not a bad question.
It's a great
I'm asking.
Problem.
I'm just curious, Richie, how are these snaps going to get divvied up over the course of a game, of a week, of a season?
So let's go ahead and start with the front 7. And the way that I have been working with all this, James out west, what's going on, my man? Yes, good to see you, James. Always good to see you. So excited for the Ohio State boys. Well, Johnson even know TTUN. I want you to tell me what that is because I've never heard that
team
before.
Up north.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's how Ohio State people get around saying Michigan.
I mean, that's the way the ASU fans do it with U of A as a team down south. So, okay, I like that. Good to know. But anyways, let's start with the front 7. And the way that I look at this is you have so many defenses that run nickel packages in their base set that I look at the Cardinals as a 2-4-5 kind of defense. So 2 down defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, including 2 edge, 2 middle, and then 5 defensive backs, including the nickel. So when I look at this defense and I look at the defensive tackle spot, I'm only getting 2 guys out at a time. Now they can shuffle and do like a 3-4 defense kind of thing, which I know is one of the spots that the defensive staff likes to run. So if we're going nickel package, and that's basically the way that I operate at this point in time, especially with Garrett Williams, that's a full-time starter. That is a full-time starter. So you can get 2 guys out there at once. And Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell, even as veterans and in their 30s, and one guy who's turning 39 this year and is still playing at a high level. That's so crazy to me, man. Like, over the last 3 years, Calais has played with 3 different teams. He's had a minimum of 5 sacks in each of those 3 seasons, 3 different teams. He's phenomenal. Really happy that he's back. And I do expect him to have a nice role with the team. Does he get 5 sacks? I have no idea. But if he does, that's a slam dunk. Neither here nor there. What I'm trying to say is even with these guys in their 30s, they feel like slot and play guys, like plug and play guys.
Yeah.
I don't expect them to play let's go 70% of the snaps. I I think they play a little bit under that. I don't want to give a specific number because I'm not good, but I do think that you're going to see a ton of rotation because Dante Stills has proven himself, especially as a pass rusher. He will get onto the field. Um, Darius Robinson, who we talk about Jordan Birch, could he stand up off the edge? I think we need to talk about that with Darius Robinson because he is a really, really good athlete. And you spent a former first round pick on him, and he's just a good pass rusher. We didn't get to see that because he was banged up, but if he's healthy, there's a reason they selected him in the first round. And there's also a reason during the draft process where even though he was really close to 300 pounds, people called him an edge rusher, not an interior lineman. They called him an edge rusher. So maybe you could get him to stand up too and have two elephant pass rushers. And if you don't know what an elephant pass rusher is, think about it as a guy who's standing up, who's anywhere north of 270 pounds. They're big. They look like an elephant off the edge because they don't look like your typical edge rusher. It doesn't look like Von Miller, who was around 250 in his prime kind of thing. It's very different. So if you have him and Jordan Birch on the outside, that's a mismatch for tackles who are not used to that kind of big, beefy force. You'll find a way to get Stills and Robinson onto the field. Lots of rotation. Then you have Walter Nolan. You spend a first-round pick on him. He is getting onto the field. Now, I will make a bold assumption here and tell you that I think Nolan might be defensive line 4 on the depth chart behind Campbell, Tomlinson, and Stills. And even then, I still don't feel good about Stills being ahead of him on the depth chart. But what
Stills at this point in time,
I'm kind of thinking that too now that I'm saying it. Right. Yeah. What I'm trying to say, though, is like he's going to be a little lower on the depth chart than other guys, and he's still going to get onto the field because he's so good. You're not going to be able to justify that kind of thing. So there's those guys, and then there's some of the other guys like Justin Jones, Bilal Nichols, who are going to be competing for their spots. You have a ton of depth on this defensive line. It is a great, great problem to have, and I think that's going to end up leading to a ton of rotation. Like I said, I don't know if your two starters, whether that's Tomlinson or Campbell, or some kind of order of Nolan is one of the starters, kind of thing like that. Like I don't know that whoever is your listed starter is going to play over 70% of the snaps on an average by the end of the season. What do we got here? You need depth in the league. You have to get after the quarterback. Elephant pass rusher. I'm stealing that line. I wish I could say that I made that line. I heard it years ago, and it's kind of a luxury position for some teams. Kind of like running 3 safeties. Like having an elephant pass rusher is a luxury. A lot of teams don't really have that. Like Zadarius Smith in his prime, that is the elephant pass rusher. Preston Smith, elephant pass rusher. So I think Jordan Birch is close to that. Darius Robinson is 100% an elephant rusher if they get him to play standing up. All right. I love the sound of my own voice. I want to give the mic back to Donnie for about 30 seconds. Now I'm taking it again.
No, you're good, man. I think that just about wraps up the conversation, man. It's just that third question I had was not necessarily a bad one. Like I said, I'm just so curious to see what happens. And more
we got to talk corner. We got to talk corner.
This question is not necessarily like how are the snaps going to be divided, but maybe more so like who steps up, like who emerges from the competition that we see in training camp and preseason to really elevate themselves, right? Because we talked about a little bit earlier in the show, competition does bring out the best in people. When the lights are on and you're competing, who's going to show up? But you're right, bring this to the cornerback room. Garrett Williams solidified his spot in the slot. For sure, he's going to be the starter there.
The rest of it's open.
I think the Cardinals like Sean Murphy-Bunting.
And they should. He's corner 1, but his job's not safe. But he is corner 1 until further notice.
If Will Johnson is healthy and he balls out like some people hope he will in training camp and preseason, it's going to be mighty hard to leave him off the field, man.
Yeah, it is.
Mighty hard, but
I don't know if you can justify keeping Max Melton off the field, though.
Right. And then, we already touched on, Starling Thomas.
Big fan of Starling Thomas.
From year 1 to year 2. I think out of the guys we just named, Star might be the bottom of that grouping, not in a bad way. But maybe more so kind of that like depth piece they need if like somebody has to like take a breather or like an injury happens.
I mean,
If
I'm
we're
still really
projecting,
confident with him out there.
I am too. I would like to see a starting three of Melton, Williams, and Johnson. And then you still have Sean Murphy Bunting, and then you still have Starling Thomas. Keetrell Clark probably loses his roster spot with the other additions made. And then Denzel Burke, too. Completely forgot about him.
Stash and develop. Stash and develop.
That's a lot of it's a lot of playing time in that room that needs to be divvied up.
Right. So, real quick, we mentioned earlier we weren't expecting them to add any defensive backs in the class. Robert, that's a lot of depth, man.
Could be.
It's going to depend on the linebacker position, but this is a defensive staff that doesn't not value linebackers, but they get good enough players, and they got good enough.
They can coach guys
good
up.
Enough.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't need big
the rest
names.
and because of the rest of the players around the defense, it allows them to get away with not having a Fred Warner or Roquan Smith kind of guy patrolling the middle of the field. But back to the corner position, you just have a great problem to have. And similar to pass rusher, and I love that this is the conversation that we're having. You can never have too many good defensive backs. And the Cardinals have several starters on other football teams. Garrett Williams is starting on 32 out of 32 football teams. Sean Murphy Bunting starts on more than a handful. Max Melton starts on more than a handful. Starling Thomas, a lot of teams will be taking a look at him. Denzel Burke, he's a flyer guy. Will Johnson, if he was healthy, that was a top 10 pick. And he could be healthy. It's the long-term concerns teams have. If he didn't have that, he was a top 10 pick. For sure, no doubt about it. So there's a lot of really, really good players in this secondary. And I made a prediction previously, and I will stand to it now. I think your week 1 starters in the secondary are going to look different than your week 18 starters by the end of the year. I do think that there's a very good chance that Will Johnson takes on a starting role. I'll make another bold prediction. He is not a week 1 starter for you. Short of injuries, he will not be a week 1 starter, but he's going to play a lot of snaps. Being a starter this year on the Cardinals defense is going to be more of an aesthetic than it is something that matters. Like, at the end of the day, Will Johnson could play 17 games with 2 starts and make the Pro Bowl because he's that good.
Yeah.
That's just the fact of the matter there. Like, you could see Max Melton not have a single start this year because Will Johnson takes a spot, and he plays just as well as he did last year. Sean Murphy Bunting could start the first half of the year, be benched, quote unquote, the second half of the year, and still be a very reliable veteran in that back end of the secondary. Like, there's going to be guys in the secondary that don't get the start because you only get 2 outside guys that are going to get the start, and Garrett Williams is starting 17 games. Garrett Williams is not going to miss a start. So you have to find these starts for only 2 guys when there's at least there's 4 starting caliber guys. So, an example, my way too early bold prediction for your starting 11, I previously said, that's an article, go check that out if you haven't, is Sean Murphy Bunting on one side, Max Melton on the other. But that doesn't mean that Starling Thomas is not capable of being a starter, because we saw that he is capable of being a plus starter for the team. Will Johnson, we know what he is too. So it's a great problem to have in the secondary. I'm not willing to go the whole, like, I don't know if someone plays 70% of the snaps thing the way that I did defensive line, because you do need a lot more consistency in the back end. But I do think that these guys, all of them, are going to find a lot of time on the field. I am not walking back the comment that Will Johnson could start 2 games and make the Pro Bowl. I will not walk that back. He is that kind of a football player for the team.
I'd agree. I really like the point you made too of bringing up the whole like starting label is like an aesthetic, because like it is, especially in a Gannon Rallis defense where like depth guys are going to play. You know, they're not thin. They're not going to run their starters out for 90% of the snaps. Obviously, guys like Buda Baker are going to play every single snap possible.
Right.
It kind of just it is what it is. But at safety, you have your standard two safeties. They do like to roll that three safety look with Rabbit sometimes. Really curious to see how much more often that gets implemented moving into this year. I just think I talked a lot about how the offense maybe doesn't have enough ingredients to really cook in 2025. There's so much talent for Gannon and Rallis to play with and to toy with and to get creative with. We saw what they did last year with the defense that was considered maybe average at best, elevating their play. Look at the guys they brought in. Like this, to Robert's point, I feel like should be a top 10 defense. When all is said and done, from week 1 to week 17, it's not going to happen right away, but like by season's end, like this should be one of the best units in the National Football League.
Isn't that a crazy statement? And the thing is, it's not super crazy. I'll say top 12. I'll say top 13 to top 12 because asking them to jump all the way into the top 10 with how many elite defenses there are in football, like you got the Ravens, you've got the Chiefs still have a really good defense. Forget about it with the Broncos, who are by far the best defense. The Eagles still have a good defense. The Bills, not overachieve, but they get the most out of their guys. Like there's a lot of great defenses in the NFL. And I don't want to put that stigma on the Cardinals, but look at how well they played last year with I don't want to call it misfit toys either, but they got the most out of a roster that wasn't as good. 41 sacks for that defense. I said they'd have less than 20. And I felt confident they would have less than 20. They more than doubled what I said because they put guys in positions to succeed. That's what makes Nick Rallis such a great defensive coordinator. He's phenomenal. I hope the Cardinals find a way to keep him around forever. He's that good. Make him your
It's not
Chuck
gonna happen,
Pagano. I know, but find a way to hold on to him. In the prime of who's for the Eagles, or not the Eagles, the Patriots, who had the pencil and was calling the not Vrabel, Matt Patricia. In Matt Patricia's prime, like just find a way to hold on to him. Obviously, he fell off the rails when he left New England. But when he was in New England, he called as great a defense as anyone else. That's what I see with Nick Rallis is just find a way to hold on to him because he gets the most out of guys. 41 sacks without a true number one edge rusher. And I think your team leader in sacks was Dante Stills with 5.5. But you still managed 41 because he was getting so many guys. Double-digit players had at least one sack for the team last year. Well, now you've given him Josh Sweat. You've given him Walter Nolan. You've given him Will Johnson on the back end. Now he's got certified established studs who could very much end up being some of the best players in the NFL over the next several years at their positions. So you got him exactly what he needed. And that could end up taking this Cardinals defense to that next level. And I do expect there to be a big step forward. I won't say a dramatic step forward. Anything that is under the top half of the league is a dramatic failure. I will tell you, getting into that 13, 12 range, great step forward. Getting to the top 10, which is possible. I want to say that is possible. That's huge. And the talent's there and the depth is there. So maybe you didn't add to the offense like we wanted. Donnie, hear me out. If everything clicks defensively, maybe you're winning games 17-14. You are capable of that, but that's asking a lot. And I'm not ready to ask that much. But if this works out, you've got a defensive-minded head coach, one of the best young defensive coordinators in football, several studs already who are on the team with Buda Baker and Garrett Williams. You add Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell, who know what they're doing. You've got the young talent, and it's just it's all coming together. And as a famous Hannibal from the A-Team once said, I love it when a plan comes together. Any A-Team fans out there? Drop a comment. Leave it number 1. Type number one if you're an A-Team fan. And I'm
Oh,
talking the
man.
original A-Team with
You could have
Mr.
given me
T.
20 guesses as to where that reference is going to go. Shout out to Dan.
You heard me say Hannibal, and you were like, "Uh-oh." Don't say Lecter. Don't say Lecter. Don't say Lecter.
All right, man. We are loopy. We have to get out of here.
We got to go.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. Really great stream. Second Monday in a row. This might be a thing. This
I think it should be a thing. Drop a W if you want this to be a live every Monday. We do record every Monday, but if you want to make it a live, then we'll make it a live. You know,
we'll do it
a
live.
famous Bill O'Reilly once said.
Yep. All right, man. For Richie Bradshaw, I am Don Andrew, and thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Cardinals on SI podcast. Follow Richie Bradshaw on Twitter at RichieBrads36. Follow me on Twitter at Don Andrew. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you.